business to check people out, a phone number, and tell them if they get stuck, call me back, we'll get you unstuck.
Wow.
That's kind of a quick overview.
Wow. It's really wonderful, and I'm so happy to hear that, honestly. You know, it's so important for the men and women coming back, and even those that are here, served here, certainly.
Yes.
You know, I certainly have seen some of the stuff firsthand. I've been, I mean, I have not been in the military myself, and I think the reason I almost did join the military, in fact, years and years ago, and the reason I didn't was because my father, at the time when I was young and younger, and actually considering it, my father said to me and to my siblings at the time, he said, "No child of mine is going to be cannon fodder," and he had gone through. You know, in World War II, he had gone through some pretty awful things, and he didn't want any of us serving. He basically said, "No way, you're not going in." And as defiant as I was, and I was very defiant, I chose at the time to respect his wishes on that and not go in. But he went through hell, trying to readjust, coming back.
Yes.
And I know a lot. I hear those stories a lot, you know, and I'm so glad that these people actually have somewhere to go.
It seems to me that war is always a life-changing experience.
Yes.
Not everybody who experiences war, not everybody who serves in uniform winds up with PTSD. Most people say that it profoundly changes how they experience the world and how they experience themselves in the world.
Sure.
A positive piece that I can let you know, you talked about how difficult, how long it took for some Vietnam veterans to get the assistance. The returning veterans now are benefiting from the efforts of the Vietnam generation in their advocacy, and I'm very pleased to say that in the vet centers in my region, Region 1A, which includes all of New York and New Jersey and New England, so that includes Connecticut, that we have an arrangement with, I believe, all of the National Guards or most of the guards, National Guard in every state, so that when a unit comes back, before they go home, they sit down and they meet with someone like myself or one of my colleagues.
Wow.
And so they get the information. Of course, everybody wants to go home. That's fine.
Oh,
we just want to give you a phone number, want to see how you're doing. If there's an immediate need, we'll help you. If not, here's where you can find us. And then we'll sit down again with them at 60 days, and then we'll sit down with them again at 90 days. So the lag time is greatly shortened. They have the information right when they come back. And again, we're also available to the family members. So sometimes the family members will either be more motivated or they'll be experiencing more distress on their readjustment shifting, and they can call us. So we're able to provide services sooner to the current generation coming back. Having said that, we are still seeing on almost daily basis getting first-time contacts from Vietnam veterans at the office that I work in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Wow.
So there are many. We're talking about 40 some odd years for most of them.
Wow.
And there's lots of reasons for that. Many find that exposure to information about our current conflict is making things bubble.
Sure, I can understand that.
So it's never too late. Absolutely never too late.
Wow.
So in some lines of work, I think I've heard of law enforcement, for instance, there's a certain stigma attached to seeking help, which I think is sad. Is there that same stigma attached to seeking help if you're in the armed forces?
There seems to be still that issue. They are doing a lot to try and address that. Part of our involvement in the demobilization process is working to try and address that by saying, look, this is normal. It's a life-changing event. You got dinged. Okay, there's some stuff that you can't go through without having some kind of impact. That's normal. And it's a good thing to see it, call it what it is, and get some help around it. That doesn't mean that it's weakness, but it's saying that metaphorically we all have that spot in the middle of our back that we can't
Sure.
quite reach all by ourselves, and it'll still itch.
Yep.
So we can help with that.
Yeah. There's certainly been a number of reports in the last couple of weeks from NPR and ProPublica and a few other news sources about some of the challenges that the VA is facing with the military infrastructure and the stigma around seeking help when something happens. They were talking specifically about traumatic brain injuries and some of the damage that can occur simply from a concussive blast.
Sure.
Not even getting into the post-traumatic stress side, just the physical damage that can occur from a concussive blast, and how frequently, if it's not bleeding, it's not a problem.
Right.
That the non-visible wounds take a back seat, and folks are coming home, and since it was never documented that they'd been in one of these situations, they're having trouble getting help.
Right. Explosions go off all the time. It's war. Right.
And just the concussion wave traveling through
Right.
your skull can damage brain cells.
Sure.
And, obviously there are varying degrees, but
Sure.
so yeah, there does really seem to still be a stigma around non-visible wounds, non-visible damage.
And it's hard because as human beings, we live in bodies, we're very concrete. Information comes to us through our senses. And we're really not that far down the road from not understanding stuff. Brain imaging
Sure.
technology is really very, very recent. And it's not that long ago when people would look at symptoms as a
Right.
result of changed brain processing, whatever the cause, as a moral issue and would label people as a
Sure.
result of
Sure.
that. Because, and I think my own personal thought is because it's human, all too human, to be afraid of what we don't know and understand,
Yes.
and we try to explain it the best that we can. And so I think there's some of that baggage that society may carry collectively that gets in the way.
Yeah.
That's the bad news. The good news is that there are these technologies.
Right.
They're trying to get the word out there. One of the things that we do when we sit down with the returning troops, right, when they come back in at 60 days and at 90 days, and they'll get it at the hospital, and then if they come and find me at the vet center, I'll be asking them some of these questions too, is we administer a TBI screening. So depending on their responses and the symptoms that they're having, we'll get them connected to the assistance they need. For example, it just kind of stood out for me how many of the veterans are returning now, and actually also some Vietnam veterans report migraine headache, and it hadn't been diagnosed, and they're not necessarily getting the effective help. Now I can't diagnose migraine,
Sure.
but it's what I don't have those qualifications.
Right.
But I kind of have an idea when I see it, and that kind of an experience is something that is pretty treatable for most people. And so one of the things that can happen when they come into our office is I would refer them to the doctor and coach them on, here's how you talk about what you're experiencing, and if I have to, I'll give them a little worksheet so that they can, if they're not sure how to talk about it, they can present it to their provider.
Right. Yeah, that kind of safety net is really important, I think, to at least catch them when they try to catch them when they come home.
Yes.
Part of that readjustment phase. I know one of the things that I've heard several times, even with physical injuries, is sort of an excitement on the soldier's part that they want to get back to the unit, they want to keep helping. They feel like they're letting their peers down by being out of action. And so they're overlooking small pains, small discomforts in order to get back on the line. And so there's a lot of good reasons why it might be happening, and so that readjustment period can be so important.
Yes. And it can be looked at as short term. The first